Good morning. As Father mentioned, I'm Father Jim Huvane. I'm with the Maryknoll Fathers here on the parish's annual mission appeal, but very happy to be with you on this lovely summer morning and have a chance to celebrate the Eucharist together. Some of you may already be familiar with Maryknoll and perhaps even get the Maryknoll magazine, but if you haven't seen a copy before or if you want to take one, we've left some at the doorways of the church, so please feel free to pick one up as you're going out. But Maryknoll is really just the nickname for the Catholic Foreign Mission Society of America. And as such, we were founded just over 100 years ago under the auspices of the bishops of the United States, as sort of our country's response to Christ's final command to each one of us that we should preach his gospel to all nations. And today there are over 300 Maryknoll priests and brothers working in over 20 different countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And generally, we work with the poorest of the poor in these countries. But I thought the best thing I might do this morning would be just tell you a little bit about my own experience working as a Maryknoll priest for the past 50 years or so, mainly in our mission in Hong Kong. Now today, when many people hear Hong Kong, they tend to think of a very modern commercial city, one of the great trading centers of the world. And that certainly is one aspect of modern-day Hong Kong. But it's not the Hong Kong that I'd be familiar with. It's not the Hong Kong Maryknoll has been working in over the years. That would better be described as Hong Kong, the city of refugees. At the end of World War II, there were only about 500,000 people in Hong Kong. Today, there are over 9 million. Now, the events that have transpired to result in such a spike in the population would be things like the end of the Second World War, the Communist Revolution in China, the war in Southeast Asia, the Cultural Revolution. Each one of these events resulted in huge influxes of refugees into the city. And as you might imagine, when a city multiplies its population by 15 or 20 in that short a period of time, there were tremendous problems of housing, employment, education, medical attention, and even such basic things as sewerage and garbage disposal. When I was first assigned to Hong Kong, I was assigned to a parish there called Our Lady Star of the Sea, and it was in the Chai Wan, or Firewood Bay section of Hong Kong Island. And we had over 130,000 people just in our parish alone. All of them either refugees or the children of refugees. And they lived in three basic types of dwelling. We had about 35 or 40,000 people who lived in shacks on the hillsides surrounding the bay. Hillsides that were too steep for any realistic type of construction, but they would build these shacks there out of cardboard or tin, scrap wood, anything they could find, really. And as you might imagine, they were not very stable or sturdy, so that when we'd get the typhoons and the heavy rains, which we sometimes get in Hong Kong, these whole hillsides could go sliding down into the bay. We had 40 people killed just in our parish alone in just one of these mudslides. Fires would sweep through these areas. We had one fire in Hong Kong that left over 28,000 people homeless in a weekend. We had another 25,000 or so in the parish who lived on junks and sampans in the harbor, sort of a permanent boat people population. But the majority of the people lived in what we call the refugee resettlement estate. This was emergency housing that was built by the government before they realized how extensive the refugee problem would become and how long it would last, so that even today, almost 3 million people in Hong Kong live in a variation of this type of dwelling in which a family of up to 6 people are assigned a single 12 by 15 foot room. And if you can imagine living in one 12 by 15 foot room with all your family and all your possessions, I'm sure you can begin to imagine some of the problems that might go along with that. But what I'd like to do this morning is tell you about just one of the people there and in particular, how I was able to help someone because someone like yourself helped me. When I was first assigned to the parish in Chaiwan, I almost immediately noticed one old lady in particular, a lady called Ah Ling. And she was kind of hard to miss because she was there quite a bit. If we had one Mass, Ah Ling would certainly be there for that. If we had 3 Masses, chances are she'd be there for all 3 of them. She came to almost all of the meetings that we had. She even came to some of the men's meetings, partly because she spoke a different dialect than the rest of us, and she wasn't always sure about what was going on, but she wanted to be part of anything that we were doing in the parish and to help out in any way that she could. And everybody knew Ah Ling and liked her because she was always a very upbeat sort of lady. So I was kind of concerned one day when I realized that Ah Ling had not been to Mass for 2 or 3 days. And to my embarrassment, I realized I didn't even know where she lived. So I had to ask someone if they could find Ah Ling to see if she was all right. And if she wasn't, if there was anything we could do for her. But they came and told me that Ah Ling was very sick and she couldn't get out of bed. But the only thing that she asked for was when I had a chance, if I would just come and give her a blessing. Well, I went that afternoon, and I found Ah Ling living in an old building down by the waterfront. It was an old 3-story apartment building that had been built before the war, with 1 apartment on each floor for a Chinese family. But in recent years, it had been converted and subdivided into what we call in Hong Kong a cage dwelling. Now, these are literally cages. They're made out of cyclone fencing and piping, much like you would put around the backyard to keep the dog in. Only here they're fitted into some of these old buildings and apartments and then rented out to people who usually have no family, very little money, and really nowhere else to go. Each of these cages is about 6 feet long, maybe 4 feet high, about 4 feet deep. They usually have a little gate on them so the people can lock their belongings in if they go out during the day, or lock themselves in at night. And the cages may be 2 high or even 3 high, depending on the height of the ceiling. The apartment that Ah Ling was living in was fitted out with 28 of these cages, 28 men and women, basically strangers to one another, but sharing just 1 bathroom and 1 small cooking area. And she told me that the way she supported herself was each morning after Mass, she would go to one of the factories in the parish. And depending on what was in season, she would buy the component parts for maybe Christmas tree ornaments or plastic flowers or labels to sew into ties, take the pieces back to her cage area there and assemble them. And when she had completed a certain quota of these, she could then sell them back to the factory at a little bit of a profit. Then she could get herself something to eat or pay the rent or buy medicine, whatever it was she had to do that day. But she was very concerned at this point because she realized how sick she was, and she knew she would not be able to work for quite a while. But she only had enough money to last her for maybe 2 or 3 weeks at the most. And she knew that when her money ran out, she could well find herself out on the street. We don't have anything like welfare or Social Security in Hong Kong, and basically what you can't pay for, you usually don't get. Thanks be to God, though, I had received a letter a couple of weeks earlier from a family I knew back here in the States who wanted to do a mission project as a family. They had written that they were going to be sending me a certain amount of money each month, and the only thing they asked was if it was possible if I could tell them where the money was going so that they could tell the children, keep them interested, and work on it together as a family. And I asked if they would mind if we used that money for the support of Ah Ling. And they said that was fine with them, and with that little bit of extra help, we were able to take care of her, to pay her rent and buy her the food and medicine she needed. And we did that for over 6 months, until eventually she was able to take care of herself again, which was something she was very eager to be able to do. And at her insistence, she was a very independent sort of lady. She continued to live in that cage and supported herself for another 6 or 7 years, until eventually she did get terminally ill. But by that time, the missionaries of charity, Mother Teresa's sisters, had also moved into the parish, and they took her in and cared for her until she died. But that's just one example of so many over the years where I found myself in almost a life and death situation with someone. But I've always been able to do something. I've always been able to respond, thanks be to God. And more often than not, it's also been thanks be to somebody like yourself. None of us really like to come home and do this sort of work. We'd much rather be working overseas and more or less going around begging for help for the missions. But the best part of this job, for me at least, is that it does give us the opportunity to personally say thank you. As someone who has seen a great deal of good done, thanks to the goodness and the generosity of the American people, and in our situation, the American Catholics in particular, it's a blessing to be able to say to you, thank you. I guess I am here, though, to ask for your help as well. As we said, this will be the parish's annual mission appeal, and there's not a second collection, but there will be a basket in the back by the baptistry there for whatever donation you feel you can make to Maryknoll and to the missions. If you didn't know we were coming today or perhaps forgot about it, you could still drop something in the next week or so. Just be sure to put it in an envelope marked on the outside that says for Maryknoll and for the missions, and also do the same if you write out a check, but make the checks out to the parish. When I was growing up, my folks used to tell us that we were insurance poor. My dad was a fireman in New York City, and as we've seen in recent years, that can be an extremely dangerous job. So we had to have all kinds of insurance that we made sure was paid up first thing each month. Health and car, life, fire insurance. But I don't recall anybody ever offering us any afterlife insurance. Now, I've got a chance to do that this morning. I really can't give you anything in writing, but if you'll take Christ's word on it, he told us that at the end of the world that definitely was going to be a great judgment. And at that time, he would divide us into two groups. And he would say to the one group, "Come, beloved of my Father, and enter the kingdom that's been prepared for you from the beginning of time," while the other group would be cast into darkness. And when we'd ask him, "Lord, how did you decide who goes where?" he would tell us that, "I didn't make that decision. You did. When I was hungry, it was you who gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you were the one who gave me something to drink. And when I was lonely or sick or grieving or depressed, in a home or a hospital or prison, you were the one who took the time to contact me, to send a card, to telephone, or to visit." And we'd ask him, "Lord, when did we do this for you?" And he would tell us that whenever we did it for the least of our brothers and sisters, we did it for him. So I'd like to offer you an opportunity this morning to do something for the least of our brothers and sisters in the sense of those who have the least of this world's goods. We can never outdo God in generosity. I'm sure you've already experienced that. Whatever it is we think we're giving to God, he seems to give us right back. In fact, he promises to give it back 100-fold in this life, as well as life everlasting. So again, thank you for the help you've given in the past, not only to Maryknoll, but to so many groups that have come to you over the years. And thank you for whatever you feel that you can do for Maryknoll at this time. And God bless you for your goodness.